The rifle crack echoed across the Montana Valley like thunder-splitting stone. 1,200 yards downrange, the bull elk staggered, then fell. Clean, instant, merciful. 8-year-old Kenna Thorne lowered the Remington 700, her small hands steady on wood and steel that weighed nearly as much as she did. Her father, Garrett Thorne, knelt beside her in the September grass, his calloused hand resting on her shoulder. "Did I do it right, Papa?" Garrett studied the distant animal through binoculars, then nodded slowly. "Heart shot. He didn't suffer. That's what matters, Kenna girl. Any fool can kill. Takes a marksman to grant mercy." He looked down at his daughter, this wild-haired sprite, who could barely see over the rifle rest, but had just made a shot that would humble most grown men. "Remember this feeling, not the pride, the responsibility. You just took a life to feed our family through winter. That elk deserved your respect, your precision, your best." Kenna's gray eyes, the color of Montana storm clouds, never left the fallen animal. "I won't waste it, Papa. Not ever. I know you won't, little Wildfire. I know you won't." That was 19 the year everything began. The year a legend was forged in mountain silence and gunsmoke, though no one knew it yet. Least of all the 8-year-old girl who would one day hold the fate of 12 men in her crosshairs and choose mercy over mission in the shadow of the Berlin Wall. But that's getting ahead of the story. And this story, like all true stories about warriors, begins in the quiet places, the forgotten places, where no one's watching and the only witness is the wind. Garrett Thorne was not a military man. He was a hunter, a guide, a man who understood that survival in the Montana backcountry required patience, precision, and respect for the natural order. He'd inherited 300 acres of wilderness from his father, who'd inherited it from his father, stretching back to homesteaders who'd carved a life from stone and timber when Montana was still territory. The Thorne family didn't have much: a cabin, a barn, 30 head of cattle, an old Ford pickup that broke down more often than it ran. But they had the mountains, and the mountains provided if you knew how to ask properly, if you knew how to shoot. Garrett taught his daughter the way his father had taught him, not with textbooks or training manuals, but with experience and consequence. Miss a shot, the family goes hungry. Wound an animal, you've created suffering. Every bullet mattered. Every decision carried weight. By 10 years old, Kenna could read wind speed by watching grass bend. She could calculate bullet drop by judging distance against known landmarks. She could slow her heartbeat by counting breaths the way her father taught her, until the crosshairs steadied like painted lines on glass. By 12, she was out shooting boys twice her age at the county fair. By 14, she'd stopped entering competitions because it embarrassed the adults. By 16, she could put 3 rounds through the same hole at 800 yards, and her father had run out of things to teach her. "You're better than me now," Garrett admitted one October evening, cleaning rifles by lamplight in the cabin. "Hell, you're better than anyone I have ever seen." Kenna looked up from oiling the Remington's bolt. "That's not true, Papa. You taught me everything. I taught you the mechanics. But that thing you do, that stillness, when you're on the trigger, that's yours. That's not taught. That's born." He paused, studying his daughter in the flickering light. 17 now, lean as a willow branch, hair the color of creek-bed copper, eyes that could stare down a grizzly. "You ever think about what comes after?" "After what?" "After here, after this valley. You've got a gift, Kenna girl. Seems a waste to spend it shooting elk when there's a whole world out there." She smiled. "This valley is my world, Papa. These mountains, you. Where else would I go?" Garrett didn't answer, but something sad crossed his face, like he could see a future she couldn't yet imagine. Like he knew the mountains wouldn't hold her forever. Nothing wild ever stayed caged for long. 2 years later, on a gray November morning in 1979, Garrett Thorne went hunting alone. He'd tracked a wounded bear into deadfall timber, and somewhere in that tangle of broken trees and shadows, something went wrong. Maybe he slipped. Maybe the bear turned on him. Maybe it was just the mountains taking back what they'd loaned him for 53 years. The sheriff found his body 3 days later. The bear was dead beside him, killed with Garrett's hunting knife. But the victory had cost everything. Kenna was 22 years old, and suddenly impossibly alone. The funeral was small. Mountain people don't make a spectacle of death. They acknowledge it, respect it, and move on. Survival doesn't pause for grief. But after the last neighbor left, after the last casserole was tucked into the refrigerator, after the cabin fell silent, Except for the wind rattling the windows, Kenna Thorne sat on the porch with her father's Remington across her lap and understood something fundamental. She couldn't stay here. Not anymore. The mountains that had made her would now bury her. Every tree would be a memory, every ridge a ghost. She'd suffocate under the weight of what used to be. Her father's words echoed, "You've got a gift. Seems a waste to spend it shooting elk when there's a whole world out there." The next morning, Kenna walked into the Army recruiting office in Great Falls and signed papers that would change everything. The recruiter, a heavy-set man with coffee breath and a cheap tie, looked at her application and smirked. "Says here you can shoot." "Yes, sir." "Every farm kid thinks they can shoot, sweetheart. Army shooting's different. It's discipline, it's pressure. It's not plinking cans off fence posts." Kenna met his eyes. "I understand, sir." He shrugged. "Basic training starts in 3 weeks. Don't quit on day one, too much paperwork." He slid the enlistment contract across the desk. "Welcome to the United States Army, Miss Thorne. Try not to break a nail." She signed without reading. What did it matter? She had nothing left to lose. Everything that mattered was already gone. Fort Jackson, South Carolina. January 1980. If Montana was ice and silent South Carolina was heat and noise, Kenna had never seen so many people in one place, had never been screamed at by strangers, had never marched in formation or stood at attention or learned that her body was no longer her own, but government property, a tool to be sharpened and deployed. Basic training was designed to break recruits down and rebuild them as soldiers. For most, it was hell. For Kenna, it was relief. Here, no one knew about the cabin, the mountains, the father who'd bled out in deadfall timber. Here she was, just another recruit with a shaved head and ill-fitting fatigues indistinguishable from 50 others. Anonymous, invisible, exactly what she needed. Until qualifications week, until they handed out M16 rifles and marched everyone to the range, until the drill sergeants started calling distances and targets and keeping score. Kenna fired 40 rounds. 40 hits, maximum possible score. The range officer approached her firing position suspicious. "Thorne, you qualify on weapons before enlisting?" "No, sir. Just grew up hunting." Hunting and what flies, he checked her target again as if expecting the holes to rearrange themselves. "This is a fluke. Shoot it again." She did. 40 more rounds, 40 more hits. Word spread fast in basic training. By evening, half the drill sergeants had wandered by to watch the strange, quiet girl from Montana who shot like she was born with a rifle in her hands. By the end of the week, she'd been flagged for advanced testing. By the end of basic, she'd been recommended for Ranger School. By March, her life had split completely from anything she'd known before. The girl who'd buried her father 4 months ago was gone. In her place was someone harder, sharper. A weapon learning to aim itself. Fort Benning, Georgia. Ranger School, April 1980. Of 340 candidates who started, only 62 would graduate. The attrition rate was deliberate. Rangers weren't regular Army. They were elite. They were tested beyond breaking, then tested again. Kenna was one of 3 women in her class. The first had quit by day 4. The second lasted 3 weeks before a stress fracture ended her attempt. That left Kenna alone among men who resented her presence and instructors who expected her to fail. She didn't fail. She endured. The 20-mile ruck marches with 80-pound packs, the sleep deprivation, the constant physical punishment designed to simulate combat stress, the crawling through mud under barbed wire while machine guns fired live rounds overhead, the hand-to-hand combat training where she fought men twice her size and learned that size meant nothing if you understood leverage and nerve clusters and refused to quit. But it was the marksmanship phase that changed everything. Ranger marksmanship wasn't target practice. It was precision under impossible conditions, shooting while exhausted, while freezing, while being screamed at by instructors simulating battlefield chaos. Hitting targets at distances most people couldn't even see clearly. The test was simple: 50 targets, distances from 300 to 1,000 yards, various weather conditions. Time limit: miss more than one, you fail. Kenna missed at 0. 49 other Rangers took the test that week. The next best score was 43 hits. Kenna shot 50 for 50. Then when the instructor asked if she wanted to try the impossible shot for bragging rights, a 1,200-yard target in crosswind, she'd calmly chambered around and put it dead center. The instructor, a grizzled sergeant first class named Hawkins, who'd served 2 tours and seen everything, just stared. Then he did something Kenna had never seen a Ranger instructor do. He smiled. "What's your name, Ranger Thorne Sergeant?" "Well, Ranger Thorne, in 20 years of teaching people to shoot, I've never seen anyone do what you just did." He paused. "Where'd you learn, Montana Sergeant?" "My father taught me." "Your father must have been one hell of a teacher." "Yes, Sergeant, he was." Hawkins made a note on his clipboard. "You're wasted in regular operations, Thorne. I'm recommending you for sniper qualification, if you're interested." Kenna felt something stir in her chest. Purpose, maybe. Direction. The first hint that she might find a place in this green machine that made sense. "I'm interested, Sergeant." "Good, because the Army needs snipers, and you, Ranger Thorne, are the best natural shooter I've ever seen." He handed back her rifle. "Don't let anyone tell you different, and don't let anyone make you smaller than you are." "Understood." "Yes, Sergeant." But even then, even with praise from a Ranger instructor and scores that should have opened every door, Kenna was learning a hard lesson. The Army talked about merit, about ability, about judging soldiers by their performance, not their background or appearance. They were lying. Fort Bragg, North Carolina, October 1981. Special Operations Command, home of Delta Force Green Berets and Ranger battalions that deployed to every dark corner of the world, doing things that never made the news. Corporal Kenna Thorne, now 24 years old, arrived with her Ranger Tab Expert Marksman badge and a service record that should have guaranteed assignment to any unit she wanted. Instead, she got assigned to logistics, equipment maintenance, basically a desk job with a rifle rack. The reason was never stated officially, but it was obvious. She was a woman, and Special Operations didn't trust women with the real work. Not in 1981, not when the entire command structure was men who'd grown up in an army where women served as nurses and clerks, not warriors. For 2 years, Kenna processed requisition forms, inventoried ammunition, scheduled training ranges. Watched from the sidelines as male Rangers with half her scores got selected for missions while she filed paperwork. She didn't complain, didn't rage, just showed up every day, did her job perfectly, and waited. Because Montana had taught her patience, had taught her that prey eventually makes a mistake. You just had to be ready when the moment came. The moment came in the form of Captain Drake Harlow. Harlow was everything the Army loved. 32 years old, square jaw, parade ground posture, West Point graduate, Ranger qualified, airborne qualified, son of a retired colonel, fast-tracked for command, and convinced, absolutely convinced, that women didn't belong in combat roles. He took command of her unit in March 1983, and within a week, he'd made his position clear. "Thorne," he said, standing over her desk with a stack of inventory reports, "I've reviewed your file. Impressive scores. Ranger school, marksman ratings." He dropped the papers in front of her. "But scores don't mean shit in the real world. Combat isn't a qualification range. It's chaos. It's blood. And women freeze when blood starts flowing. I've seen it. Every single time." Kenna kept her eyes on her computer screen. "Yes, sir. So here's how this works. You do your job, you stay out of my way, and when someone asks why there's a female Ranger in my unit who never sees action, I'll politely explain that you're more valuable in support roles. Everyone wins. You get to keep your tab. I don't have to explain to a family why their son died because some girl couldn't carry her weight. Clear?" "Crystal, sir." Harlow smiled. "Good. Glad we understand each other." He walked away, already dismissing her from his mind. Just another problem solved. Another distraction managed. But Kenna sat very still at her desk, hands flat on the surface, breathing slowly. Counting. The way her father had taught her. The way you do before taking a shot that matters. And she thought, you'll see, eventually. They all will. She just didn't know how soon eventually would come, or how much it would cost. The letter arrived 2 weeks later. Hand-delivered by a soldier Kenna didn't recognize. No insignia, no name tape, just a plain manila envelope marked Corporal Thorne, eyes only. Inside was a single typed note. "Range 7, 0600 tomorrow. Come alone, tell no one, bring your rifle. No signature, no explanation. Kenna read it 3 times, then burned it in the bathroom sink. Probably a prank. Probably someone setting her up for a reprimand for unauthorized range use. Probably nothing. But Montana had also taught her to trust instinct. And her instinct said, this matters. Go. So at 0545 the next morning, while Fort Bragg was still dark and quiet, except for distant PT formations calling cadence, Kenna Thorne carried her rifle case to Range 7 and wondered what she was walking into. Range 7 was the long-distance range, 1,000 yards mostly unused except for sniper qualifications. When Kenna arrived, one man was already there setting up targets at various distances. Old, maybe late 50s, thick through the shoulders, gray hair cut military short, moving with the careful precision of someone whose body had been broken and rebuilt multiple times. He turned when her boots crunched gravel. His face was weathered like old leather, but his eyes were sharp, evaluating, measuring. Corporal Thorne, you came. Good. His voice was gravel and whiskey. I'm Master Sergeant Boone Calloway, and we need to talk about your career, specifically how it's being wasted. Kenna said nothing, just waited, patient, like watching a deer trail. Boone smiled slightly. You don't trust easy. Smart. You shouldn't. He gestured toward the targets. But before we talk, I want to see if the rumors are true. I want to see you shoot. Sir, I don't understand what this is about. You will, if you're as good as your scores say, if you're as good as Sergeant Hawkins says, and if you're as good as I think you are. He pointed downrange. 10 targets, 300 to 1,000 yards. No time limit, just put rounds on steel. Show me what Montana taught you. Kenna hesitated. This could still be a trap. Could be Harlow testing her. Could be anything. But the rifle was already in her hands, and shooting was the only truth she'd ever known. She sat up prone, adjusted for wind, breathed, became still. The first shot rang out across the empty morning. 300 yards. Hit. 400. Hit. 500. Hit. She moved through the distances methodically. Professionally, not rushing, not showing off, just executing the fundamentals her father had drilled into her bones before she could write her own name. 800 yards. Hit. 900. Hit. 1,000. Crosswind. Mirage rising from the morning heat. She waited for a lull, compensated for drift, squeezed. Hit. Silence. Then Boone's voice behind her. Jesus Christ, Hawkins wasn't exaggerating. Kenna cleared her weapon and stood. What is this about, Sergeant? Boone walked to her, studying her face. How old are you, Corporal? 26, sir. And how long you been filing paperwork while men half as good get to do the job you trained for? 2 years, sir. That make you angry? Kenna met his eyes. Anger wastes energy, sir. I just wait for opportunities. Boone laughed, actually laughed. Damn, you really are something. He sobered. I've been teaching snipers for 30 years, Corporal. Korean War, Cold War, every conflict you never heard about. I've trained hundreds of shooters, some good, some great. You, he shook his head. You're once in a generation, maybe once in a lifetime. And the Army is letting you rot because Captain Harlow thinks women should stay home and bake cookies. The Army doesn't. Don't, Boone's voice went hard. Don't defend a system that's wasting you. I know what's happening. So does everyone with eyes. But most don't care enough to do anything about it. He paused. I care because I'm dying. And before I go, I want to fix one goddamn injustice in this machine. You're going to be that fix. Kenna blinked. Sir, heart condition. Diagnosed last month. Maybe a year left, maybe less. He said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. So I don't have time for politics or protocol. I'm going to train you, really train you, everything I know, everything the Army won't teach you because you're not supposed to be a shooter. He stepped closer. And when the moment comes when they finally need someone who can actually do the impossible, you're going to be ready. And you're going to shove their prejudices so far down their throats, they choke on it. You with me, Kenna felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been locked tight since her father died. Hope, maybe, or purpose, or just the recognition that someone finally saw her. really saw her. Not a woman pretending to be a soldier, but a marksman, a warrior. The thing she'd been forged to become. I'm with you, Sergeant. Good, Boone smiled. Now get your gear. We're burning daylight, and we've got a lot of work to do before I keel over. He turned and walked toward the target line, already planning drills and scenarios and training that would push Kenna past anything she'd experienced. And Kenna followed. Rifle on her shoulder, eyes forward, ready. In the Montana Valley where she'd learned to shoot, her father's ghost watched and nodded approval. The little girl who'd made her first kill at 8 years old was gone forever. In her place stood Corporal Kenna Wildfire Thorne, future legend, current ghost, and the world was about to learn what happens when you underestimate fire, even when it burns quiet. The briefing room smelled like stale coffee and old sweat. 23 men sat in folding chairs, backs straight, eyes forward. One woman stood against the rear wall, invisible by design, holding a radio pack that weighed 40 pounds. Captain Drake Harlow stood at the front beside a projection screen showing satellite imagery of East Berlin. December 1980, the Cold War at its coldest. The wall dividing the world into us and them, free and enslaved, light and shadow. Gentlemen, Harlow began, ignoring Kenna's presence entirely. Operation Frosthammer is a go. Our objective is Dr. Lucas Brandt, Soviet physicist working on missile guidance systems. He wants to defect. We're going to make that happen. He clicked to the next slide. A grainy photo of a middle-aged man with thick glasses and thinning hair. Unremarkable. The kind of face you'd forget in a crowd, except this face contains secrets worth killing for. Target is currently held at a KGB facility 3 kilometers inside East Berlin. Intel suggests light security, standard patrol patterns. We insert via tunnel under the wall, extract the target exfil before dawn. Clean, simple. In and out before they know we're there. One of the Rangers raised his hand. What about hostile snipers, sir? Harlow shrugged. Intel mentions a KGB officer assigned to facility security. Major Katrina Volkov. Cold War relic, mostly administrative now. Nothing to worry about. In the back of the room, Kenna went very still. Something in her gut twisted, the way it did in Montana when the wind changed and you knew that the storm was coming, but couldn't see it yet. Boone had taught her to trust that feeling. Your body knows things before your brain catches up, he'd said during one of their secret training sessions. When your gut screams, listen. It's kept soldiers alive since we were throwing rocks at each other. Harlow continued briefing. Entry points, communication protocols, extraction coordinates, standard special operations procedure, professional, thorough, confident, too confident. After the briefing, as the Rangers filed out, Kenna waited. When the room emptied, she approached Harlow. Sir, request permission to speak. Harlow didn't look up from his notes. Thorne, your job is to carry the radio and stay out of the way. That's it. Questions? Sir, the intel on Major Volkov. Did they provide operational history? Now he looked up, irritated. Why would that matter? Because if she's KGB, she has a record. And if she's assigned to protect a high-value asset, she's not administrative. She's operational. I just think we should know what we're walking into, sir. Harlow's jaw tightened. I think I'll trust CIA analysts over a corporal who's never seen combat. Your job is equipment. My job is tactics. Stay in your lane. Yes, sir. She left, but the feeling in her gut didn't. That night, Kenna found Boone in the instructor barracks reading by lamplight. His room was sparse. A cot, a footlocker, photos of soldiers who'd served under him, most now dead or scattered to civilian life. Can't sleep, he asked without looking up. Something's wrong with the mission. Now he looked. Explain. Kenna sat on the footlocker. Harlow's dismissing the Soviet sniper, calling her administrative. But KGB doesn't waste personnel. If they assigned her to protect the scientist, she's dangerous. We're walking in blind. Boone closed his book. You tell Harlow this. Yes, Sergeant. He told me to stay in my lane. Of course he did. Boone stood, moved to a filing cabinet, pulled out a folder. Classified markings. He shouldn't have it. Kenna shouldn't see it. He handed it to her anyway. Major Katrina Volkov, KGB, age 43, 73 confirmed kills. Started as a sniper in World War II when she was 16 years old. Stalingrad, Leningrad, Berlin in 45. After the war, she stayed active. Korea. Every Soviet conflict you never heard about. He paused. She's not administrative corporal, she's a legend. Kenna read the file. Citations, medals, a black and white photo of a young woman with cold eyes holding a Mosin Nagant rifle. The same eyes 40 years older in a recent surveillance photo. Why isn't this in the mission brief? Because CIA wants this done fast. If command knew they were sending Rangers against one of the most accomplished snipers in Soviet history, they'd reconsider. Maybe send a bigger team. Maybe scrub the mission entirely. But politics demand action. So they downplay the threat and hope for the best. That's insane. That's government. Boone took the file back. You're going on this mission. You'll be carrying radio equipment while the shooters go in. And when things go sideways, because they will, you'll have a choice. Follow orders and watch good men die. Or do what needs doing and accept the consequences. Kenna met his eyes. What would you do? Boone smiled, sad, knowing. I'd save the men. Every time. That's why I never made general. He gripped her shoulder. Your father taught you to shoot. I'm teaching you to think. Use both. And when the moment comes, trust yourself over anyone else. Understood. Yes, Sergeant? Good, now, get some sleep. You deploy in 36 hours. And Corporal, he waited until she reached the door. Come back. I'm not done training you yet. She nodded and left, but they both knew he was lying. His heart was failing. Time was running out. This might be the last mission she ever briefed with him. The last lesson from the last teacher who believed she was worth teaching. December 18th, 200 hours, beneath the Berlin Wall. The tunnel was barely 4 feet high, dug by East German refugees in the 50s, discovered by Western intelligence, maintained in secret for moments exactly like this. 8 Rangers moved through darkness, night vision, turning the world green and grainy. Kenna came last, the radio pack straps cutting into her shoulders, weight distributed wrong, because Harlow had personally overseen her loadout. Let's see if she can handle a real combat load, he'd said, adding extra batteries they didn't need. Petty, vindictive, a small man exercising the only power he had. Kenna said nothing, just adjusted the straps and moved. She'd carried deer carcasses through Montana snow that weighed more. This was nothing. They emerged on the East German side at 2:47 hours. The safe house was an abandoned textile factory. Windows blown out, roof partially collapsed. Soviet occupation had been hard on East Berlin. Whole neighborhoods looked like the war had ended yesterday instead of 38 years ago. Inside the factory, the team set up a temporary base. Harlow spread a map on the concrete floor, flashlight, illuminating their route to the target facility. 3 kilometers northeast. We move in 2 hours. Radio silence except for emergencies. Thorne, you stay here. Monitor communications. If we call for extraction, coordinate with command. One of the Rangers, a staff sergeant named Mitchell, spoke up. Sir, shouldn't we have a shooter on overwatch in case things get complicated? Harlow didn't even glance at Kenna. We have 7 Rangers, Mitchell. We'll be fine. Thorne's job is comms, not combat. Mitchell looked like he wanted to argue, but discipline won. Yes, sir. They left at 4:30. Kenna watched from a shattered window as they disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. 7 men moving toward a target, defended by a woman whose kill count exceeded theirs combined. She gave them 30 minutes. Then she did exactly what Boone would have done. She followed. The radio pack stayed behind. Too heavy, too noisy. Instead, Kenna carried only her rifle, a sidearm, and the lessons Montana had carved into her bones. She moved through East Berlin like smoke, like shadow. Using rubble for cover timing, her movement between streetlight pools, reading the city the way she'd read mountain terrain. By 05:20, she'd reached an apartment building 400 meters from the target facility, climbed to the 4th floor, found a room with intact windows facing the objective, and saw immediately that the mission was already compromised. The facility was a converted warehouse, brick and barbed wire. Intel had shown 2 guards outside, rotating every 6 minutes. Instead, Kenna counted 6 guards, rotating every 4 minutes. Patrol routes overlapping. Professional. Disciplined. Someone knew they were coming. She keyed the radio she'd taken from the safe house. Reaper 1, this is Shadow. Mission is compromised. Count 6 hostiles outside, patterns suggest enhanced security. Recommend abort. Static, then Harlow's voice tight with anger. Shadow, identify yourself. Thorn, sir, I'm on Overwatch. Someone tipped them off. This is a trap. Thorn, you disobeyed a direct order. Return to the safe house immediately. We're proceeding as planned. Sir, please. The security is wrong. They're waiting for you. Radio silence. Now. The connection died. Kenneth sat in the darkness of that abandoned apartment and understood. Harlow would rather walk into a trap than accept intelligence from a woman he had already decided was useless. Pride would kill him, and 6 other 10 who'd done nothing wrong except trust their commander. She settled into shooting position, steadied her breathing, and waited. The Rangers hit the facility at 0547 just as dawn started graying the eastern sky. They came in perfect formation, professional discipline. They breached the door with shaped charges. They entered in 2-man teams covering angles, clearing rooms. And 30 seconds later, the trap sprang. Explosions sealed both exits. Floodlights ignited the courtyard. Machine gun fire poured from elevated positions Kenna hadn't even seen. The Rangers dove for cover inside the building, pins surrounded, outmaneuvered. Through her scope, Kenna saw Harlow take a round through the shoulder. Saw him drop his second-in-command, dragging him behind a concrete pillar. Saw muzzle flashes from 4 different positions, coordinated, professional. And from a window on the facility's 3rd floor, Kenna saw her. Major Katrina Volkov. Older than her photos, but unmistakable. Gray hair tied back, weathered face, and a Dragunov SVD sniper rifle with a scope that probably cost more than Kenna's entire loadout. Their eyes met across 400 meters. 2 women, 2 shooters, 2 warriors that their respective governments had underestimated and discarded and tried to break. Volkov smiled. Then she traversed her rifle toward the pinned Rangers. Kenna fired first. The shot was impossible. 400 meters. Crosswind. Shooting through a broken window that could deflect the bullet. Targeting another sniper who'd survived 40 years of combat by never being where enemies expected. The bullet passed 3 inches from Volkov's head. Intentional miss, a message. I see you, I'm here. And if you hurt them, you die. Volkov disappeared from the window. Repositioning, and now the real hunt began. Kenna moved immediately. Never shoot twice from the same position. Boone's voice in her head, calm, certain. She dropped to the 3rd floor, found another angle settled. Volkov appeared at ground level, using rubble for cover, moving toward the Rangers' position. She was flanking, smart, patient. Kenna fired again. The round sparked off concrete 6 inches from Volkov's head. The Russian dove rolled, came up behind a destroyed vehicle, and returned fire. The shot punched through the wall 2 feet from Kenna's position. Close, professional, respectful. This wasn't suppression fire. This was communication. I see you too, and you're good, but I'm better. For 15 minutes, they hunted each other through the ruins of East Berlin. Shot and countershot. Movement and counter-movement. A duel conducted in brass and lead where mistakes meant death and hesitation meant losing. Kenna had never felt more alive. Every sense heightened, every movement precise. This was what she trained for, what Montana had prepared her for. Not killing, not winning, but matching skill against skill, will against will in a contest where only truth mattered. She fired 7 shots. Volkov fired 6. Neither had hit. Both were too good, too careful. And then the Soviet reinforcements arrived. Trucks, 20 soldiers, heavy weapons. The Rangers trapped inside had maybe 5 minutes before they were overrun. Kenna could hear Harlow on the radio, now abandoning a protocol, screaming for air support that wasn't coming. She had to choose. Continue the duel with Volkov, which she might win, but would take too long. Or break off, shift targets, try to buy the Rangers time. Her father's voice, any fool can kill. Takes a marksman to grant mercy. Boone's voice, save the men, every time. Her own voice, I won't waste it, not ever. Kenna shifted aim, tracked the incoming soldiers, breathed, and started taking shots. The first Soviet fell at 400 meters dead before he knew he was targeted. The second dropped while trying to drag his comrade to cover. The third made it behind a truck but exposed himself, adjusting his weapon. 3 shots, 3 hits, clean, professional, necessary. The Soviet advance stopped. Soldiers scattered, seeking cover, no longer sure where the shooting was coming from. Kenna bought the Rangers 90 seconds of chaos, 90 seconds to regroup, to plan, to prepare. And then Volkov found her. The round hit the wall behind Kenna's head, showering her with brick fragments. She rolled left as the second shot tore through the space she'd occupied. Volkov had triangulated her position from muzzle flash, and now the Russian was coming. Kenna abandoned her position, moving through the building, trying to relocate. But Volkov was faster, older but wiser. She'd cut Kenna off from the exit, herding her toward the building's south wing, toward a trap. Kenna realized it too late. The south wing had no rear exit, just a long hallway ending in a brick wall. She was cornered, and Volkov knew it. Footsteps echoed in the stairwell, slow, confident, the walk of someone who'd done this 100 times. Kenna pressed against the wall beside the hallway entrance, rifle, ready, heart pounding, but hands steady. The footsteps stopped. Then Volkov's voice, accented but clear. "American sniper, you are very good, best I've faced in many years, but you are young, and young makes mistakes." Kenna said nothing, breathing quietly, waiting. "I do not wish to kill you," Volkov continued. "You fight for your men. This is honorable. I fight for my country, also honorable. We are same, you and I, tools used by men who never risk themselves." Still Kenna waited, calculating. The hallway was 30 feet. Volkov would have to expose herself to enter. One chance, one shot. "But I will kill you if you make me. So I offer choice. Leave now. Take your men. I let you go. The scientist stays. This is my mission. You have done enough. You have honor. Do not throw it away for politics." Kenna thought about it. Really thought about it. She'd already saved the Rangers twice. Already proved everything she needed to prove. Walking away wasn't cowardice. It was survival. But the Rangers were still pinned, still outnumbered, and if she left, Volkov would kill them. Professional, clinical, necessary. "I can't do that," Kenna called back. Silence. Then something like sadness in Volkov's voice. "I know, I would not either." A pause. "Then we finish this properly. Like warriors, not hiding, not games. How Salma, I come around corner. You shoot, I shoot. Best shooter lives. Honorable. Quick. The way it should be." Kenna's mind raced. This was insane. A duel at 30 feet, point-blank range. Whoever fired first won. But Volkov was older, more experienced. She'd done this before. Kenna hadn't. But Kenna had something Volkov didn't. Youth. Reflexes honed by Montana mountains and 2 years of secret training with Boone, and the absolute certainty that if she died here, Harlow would walk away, having been proved right. That women couldn't handle combat. She'd rather die than give him that satisfaction. "Okay," Kenna said. "On three." "On three," Volkov agreed. "One." Kenna shifted her grip, centered her breathing. "Two." Her father's face flashed through her mind. Boone's voice. The Montana Valley at dawn. "Three." Volkov came around the corner, fast rifle already shouldered, finger on trigger. Professional, deadly. Exactly what 40 years of survival had taught her. But Kenna didn't fire. She dove forward beneath Volkov's sightline, rolled, came up behind the Russian, and put her rifle barrel against the back of Volkov's head. "Don't move." For 3 seconds, neither woman moved. Volkov could spin, try to bring her weapon around. Probably die in the attempt. Kenna could pull the trigger. End this. Win. Neither did. "You did not shoot," Volkov said quietly. "No." "Why?" "Because you're not my enemy. The situation is." Slowly, Volkov lowered her rifle. Kenna stepped back, maintaining distance, keeping her weapon ready, but not aggressive. They faced each other. 2 soldiers, 2 snipers, 2 women who'd been told their entire lives they couldn't do what they'd just done. "What is your name?" Volkov asked. "Corporal Kenna Thorne." "Corporal Thorne, you should have killed me." "Probably." Volkov almost smiled. "You are either very wise or very stupid. I have not decided which." "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Why are you protecting the scientist intel says he wants to defect?" Volkov's face changed. Something painful crossed it. "Dr. Brandt is my brother. The girl with him is my niece, 15 years old. He wants to take her to West, give her life. I cannot. Freedom I cannot. She paused. I am ordered to stop him, but I am also ordered to protect family. These orders conflict. Kenna understood immediately. You're torn between duty and love. Yes, as you are torn between orders and conscience. Volkov gestured toward the facility. Your captain. He is foolish man. Arrogant. He will get soldiers killed for pride. You know this. I know. So why do you save him? Because they're my brothers too. Not by blood, but by choice. And I don't let my brothers die. Volkov studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Decision made. I help you. We extract your men and my brother and niece together. I give you exit route KGB does not watch. We both complete mission. We both preserve honor. Yeah, Kenna lowered her rifle completely. Yes. They shook hands, enemy to enemy, warrior to warrior, woman to woman, and together they planned the impossible. 30 minutes later, the Rangers stumbled through a drainage tunnel Volkov had shown them. Harlow barely conscious from blood loss being carried by Mitchell. The rest wounded, exhausted, certain they were dead men, walking. They emerged in a warehouse 2 blocks away. Kenna was waiting with Dr. Brandt and his daughter, a terrified teenager clutching a small suitcase. What the hell? Mitchell stared. Thorne, how did you? No time, Exville is 3 blocks west. We need to move now. Harlow, delirious from a pain and shock, grabbed her arm. You disobeyed orders. Yes, sir, I did. And I saved your life. You're welcome. They moved through the pre-dawn streets. Kenna led. She knew the route. Volkov had drawn it personally, explaining patrol gaps, security weaknesses, the path to freedom. At the extraction point, a building overlooking the wall, Kenna looked back once. Saw a figure on a distant rooftop. Too far to identify. But she knew. Volkov raised one hand. Salute. Respect. Farewell. Kenna returned it, then turned and helped her team over the wall. Back to West. Back to safety. Back to America. Back to a reckoning that would determine everything. The helicopter lifted off at 0712 hours. Behind them, East Berlin faded into morning haze. Inside the aircraft, 7 Rangers sat in silence, processing what had just happened. How they'd survived. Who'd saved them. Harlow, drugged by morphine, mumbled incoherently. Mitchell met Kenna's eyes across the cabin and nodded. Respect. Recognition. Finally. But Kenna just stared out the window, watching the sunrise over a divided city, thinking about a Russian sniper who'd chosen love over duty, mercy over mission. Thinking about what that choice would cost them both, and wondering if Boone would be proud or disappointed when he heard what she'd done. Probably both. Fort Bragg looked smaller than Kenna remembered. Or maybe she'd just gotten used to seeing the world through rifle scopes where everything was magnified, clarified, reduced to target and non-target. She sat in the windowless briefing room, alone, waiting. They'd separated her from the team the moment the wheels touched down at Pope Air Force Base. No explanation, no debriefing, just, wait here, Corporal. Someone will speak with you shortly. That was 4 hours ago. The door finally opened. A man in civilian clothes entered, carrying a folder thick enough to be her entire service record. Late 40s, graying at the temples, eyes that had learned to see through lies. CIA probably, or Defense Intelligence. Someone whose job was bearing inconvenient truths. Corporal Thorne, he sat across from her without offering his hand. I'm Deputy Director Alan Matthews, Central Intelligence Agency. I'll be conducting your operational review for Berlin. Yes, sir. Matthews opened the folder, read silently for 30 seconds, then looked up with an expression Kenna had seen before on officers who'd decided she was a problem that needed managing. Let's establish facts. You disobeyed a direct order to remain at the safe house. You left your assigned position without authorization. You engaged hostile forces independently. You fired on Soviet personnel, killing 3. You conducted unauthorized negotiations with a KGB operative, and you exposed classified American tactical procedures to an enemy combatant. He paused. Have I missed anything? No, sir, that's accurate. Good, because the question isn't whether you violated protocol. You clearly did. The question is what we do about it. He leaned back. 7 Rangers came home alive. Dr. Brandt and his daughter are currently being processed for asylum. By every objective measure, Operation Frosthammer was a success. Kenna said nothing. In Montana, her father had taught her that silence was often the best response when someone else wanted to do the talking. But success is complicated by context, Matthews continued. Your commanding officer, Captain Harlow, walked into an ambush because he ignored intelligence warnings. CIA's threat assessment was incomplete at best, negligent at worst. And the entire operation was saved by a female corporal who wasn't supposed to be anything more than a radio carrier. He closed the folder. That's embarrassing. For a lot of important people. I understand, sir. Do you? Because embarrassment has consequences in our world. Captain Harlow has friends, family connections, a father who's a retired two-star general. The CIA doesn't like admitting its intelligence was flawed. And the Army doesn't like being shown up by someone who's supposed to be filing paperwork, not taking headshots at 400 meters. Kenna met his eyes. What do you want from me, sir? Matthews almost smiled. Honesty. That's refreshing. He pulled a document from the folder. Here's what's going to happen. Captain Harlow will receive a commendation for tactical excellence under fire. His after-action report will emphasize how he adapted to unexpected circumstances and successfully extracted the asset despite enhanced security. No mention of being ambushed. No mention of his incapacitation. And me. You'll be quietly transferred. Honorable discharge with full benefits. Glowing recommendations for whatever civilian career you choose. Hell will even help place you somewhere lucrative. Defense contracting, private security. You'll be taken care of, Corporal. But your military service ends here, today. Kenna felt something cold settle behind her ribs. I see. It's not personal, it's practical. You made powerful people look incompetent. That has costs. We're offering you the softest landing possible under the circumstances. And if I refuse the discharge, Matthew's expression hardened, then we court-martial you for every regulation you violated. Article 92, failure to obey orders. Article 9, misbehavior before the enemy. Article 134, conduct prejudicial to good order. You'll be dishonorably discharged, lose all benefits, and spend the next decade explaining to employers why the military threw you out. He paused. And the truth about Berlin gets buried so deep that your grandchildren won't find it. You become a cautionary tale about women who can't handle combat pressure. That's your alternative. The room was very quiet. Somewhere above them, jets were taking off from Pope. Below, soldiers were training, living the life Kenna had fought 4 years to earn. The life being taken from her because she'd been too good at a job she wasn't supposed to have. I have a question, sir. Go ahead. Why did you really send me on that mission? The official reason was communications support. But Master Sergeant Calloway fought to get me included. Someone at CIA approved it. Why? Matthew studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Because we knew the intelligence was questionable. We knew Major Volkov was more dangerous than the briefing suggested, and we needed insurance. Someone expendable who was also exceptionally capable. He said it without shame. You were the insurance policy corporal. If things went sideways, you'd either fix it or die trying. Either outcome was acceptable. I was bait. You were a contingency, and you performed exactly as predicted. Better, actually, which is why this conversation is happening instead of a funeral. He stood. I need your answer by 1600 hours. Accept the discharge or face court-martial. Those are your options. Choose wisely. He left. The door locked with a soft click, and Kenna Thorne sat alone in that windowless room, understanding with perfect clarity that she'd been used. Not just by Matthews, by everyone. Even Boone, who'd seen her potential and decided she was worth weaponizing. She thought about Montana, about her father teaching her to shoot, telling her every bullet mattered, about the promise she'd made to herself the day she joined the Army to be more than what the system expected. She'd kept that promise, and the system was punishing her for it. The door opened again. Kenna looked up, expecting Matthews with discharged papers. Instead, Staff Sergeant Mitchell stood there. Behind him, the other 6 Rangers from Berlin, not in formation, not at attention, just standing there watching her with expressions that mixed respect and guilt. Corporal, Mitchell said quietly, we need to talk. They took her to the barracks. Not the headquarters building where officers made decisions that destroyed lives. The barracks, where soldiers lived and died and told each other truths they'd never speak aloud in official channels. The common room was full, not just her 7 from Berlin, 20 other Rangers, some she recognized from training, others were strangers, all watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Mitchell gestured to a chair. Sit. She sat, uncertain, wary, ready to fight or flee depending on what came next. We heard about the discharge offer, Mitchell said, about them erasing what you did, about Harlow taking credit. His jaw tightened. That's bullshit. Complete unforgivable bullshit, and we're not letting it stand. Kenna blinked. What? Patterson, the youngest ranger who'd frozen under fire until Kenna's covering shots gave him courage, stepped forward. You saved our lives, Corporal. All of us. We know it. We were there. Harlow walked us into a trap because he was too arrogant to listen. You got us out because you were better than anyone expected. The official report doesn't say that, Kenna said carefully. Fuck the official report. That was Mitchell again, angrier now. We were there. We know the truth. And if they court-martial you, we're testifying, all of us. We'll make them explain why they're punishing the only person who did their job right. Kenna looked around the room. These men who'd mocked her, called her tourist, questioned whether she belonged, now standing with her, ready to sacrifice their careers to protect hers. Why? The word came out smaller than she intended. Why risk it? Mitchell pulled a folded paper from his pocket, worn, coffee-stained. He handed it to her. It was a letter, Boone's handwriting, addressed to Mitchell, dated 3 days before the Berlin mission. Staff Sergeant Mitchell, if you're reading this, I'm probably dead or close to it. Heart's giving out. Doc says maybe 6 months. I'm not telling Kenna because she tried to save me instead of focusing on her training. But I need you to know something. That girl is the best natural shooter I've seen in 36 years. Better than me, better than you, better than anyone currently serving. The Army is wasting her because of politics and prejudice. If anything happens to her, if they try to bury her to protect some officer's ego, I'm asking you to remember what Rangers are supposed to stand for. We don't leave our own behind, and she's one of ours, whether the brass admits it or not. Take care of her. Make sure her service matters. That's my last order. Boone Calloway, MSG. Kenna read it twice, her vision blurred. She blinked hard, refusing to cry in front of them. He died 4 days ago, Mitchell said quietly. Heart attack. They buried him yesterday at the Fort Bragg Cemetery. You weren't told because you were in operational debriefing. The words hit like bullets. Boone was dead. The man who'd seen her, trained her, believed in her when no one else did. Gone. And she hadn't even been allowed to say goodbye. I didn't know, she managed. We figured. That's why we're here, because Boone asked us to look out for you, and because it's the right thing to do. Mitchell crossed his arms. So here's the plan. We're going to force the Army's hand. Over the next 20 minutes, they explained. The Ranger Memorial Wall dedication was happening in 48 hours. Boone's name was being added. Every senior officer on the East Coast would attend. Generals, colonels, the kind of brass that could overrule CIA politics if they chose. And as Boone's last trainee, Kenna was authorized to speak at the ceremony. 5 minutes, Mitchell said. 5 minutes in front of everyone who matters. Tell them what happened in Berlin. Tell them what Boone taught you. Tell them the truth. Make them choose between protecting Harlow's reputation or honoring what special operations is supposed to be about. They'll destroy me, Kenna said. Maybe, but they'll have to do it publicly, in front of witnesses. Rangers have long memories, Corporal. We remember who stood for integrity and who covered for cowards. He met her eyes. Boone believed you could change things. This is how. One speech. Make it count. Kenna looked at the letter again. Boone's final words. His last order. Take care of her. Make sure her service matters. She'd spent 4 years trying to prove she belonged. 4 years being dismissed, mocked, underestimated. She'd saved 7 lives in Berlin and been rewarded with erasure. But Boone hadn't forgotten her. These Rangers hadn't forgotten her. And maybe, just maybe, the truth was worth fighting for, even if fighting meant losing everything. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Mitchell smiled. Good. Now let's make sure you're ready. The next 48 hours passed in a blur. Kenna wrote and rewrote her speech. Not a tribute, a testimony. 5 minutes of unvarnished truth about what happened in Berlin. What the army was trying to hide. What Boone had taught her about integrity versus politics. She practiced alone in her quarters, speaking to empty walls, remembering Boone's voice coaching her through impossible shots. Trust yourself. Your body knows things before your brain catches up. The morning of the dedication, she dressed in her Class A uniform, pressed sharp, boots polished, mirror bright, every insignia aligned perfectly. If this was her last day in the Army, she'd look like a soldier to the end. The Special Operations Museum was packed, 400 people, dressed blues and medals, and the weight of accumulated history. The memorial wall itself was black granite, names carved in gold, hundreds of Rangers who'd given everything. And now near the bottom, fresh and gleaming, Master Sergeant Boone Calloway, 1924-1983. Teacher, warrior, legend. Kenna stood before that wall and felt her father's ghost beside her, felt Boone's spirit in the stone, felt the weight of everyone who'd believed she could be more than the system allowed. The ceremony began with speeches about valor and sacrifice, stories about Boone's career sanitized for public consumption, his time in Korea, his decades teaching snipers. Nothing about his final year training a corporal the Army wanted to forget. Then the museum director, a retired colonel with kind eyes, called her name. Corporal Kenneth Thorne, Master Sergeant Calloway's final trainee, will now speak. She walked to the podium. Saw Matthews in the third row face tight with warning. Saw Mitchell and the Rangers' expressions set with determination. Saw Captain Harlow, arm in a sling, looking smug, certain she'd give some generic tribute and disappear quietly. Saw generals and colonels and men with enough power to end her with a word. Kenna gripped the podium, breathed, remembered Montana, remembered her father teaching her that every shot had consequences. Remembered Boone's letter, make sure her service matters, she began. Master Sergeant Calloway taught me 3 things. First, that shooting isn't about killing, it's about precision when everything depends on it. Second, that organizations often reward politics over performance. And third, that the only way to change a broken system is to refuse to accept its lies. The room went very quiet. 2 weeks ago, I participated in Operation Frost Hammer in East Berlin. My role was supposed to be communication support. Stay at the safe house. Monitor radio traffic. Don't interfere with the professionals. She paused. But the mission was compromised before we arrived. Intelligence was incomplete. Security was heavier than briefed. And a Soviet sniper with 73 confirmed kills was protecting the target. She saw Harlow start to stand. Mitchell's hand on his shoulder pushed him back down. My commanding officer led 7 Rangers into an ambush. I disobeyed orders to provide overwatch. When the trap sprang and my CO was shot, I engaged a legendary KGB operative in a 15-minute duel through ruined buildings. I neutralized 3 hostile combatants. I created enough chaos for my team to reposition. And when I finally had Major Katrina Volkov in my crosshairs, I chose negotiation over execution. Matthews was moving through the crowd trying to reach her. Too late. Major Volkov's brother was the defector. Her 15-year-old niece was with him. She was ordered to stop them, but also ordered to protect family. She was torn between duty and love. I understood that conflict. So instead of killing her, I made a deal. She provided an escape route. I ensured she wouldn't be hunted. Together, we extracted 7 Rangers, 1 scientist, and 1 terrified girl who just wanted freedom. Kenna let that statement hang. Let them process it. An American sniper negotiating with the enemy, breaking every rule, saving everyone. The official after-action report credits Captain Harlow with tactical brilliance under fire. It states he adapted to unexpected circumstances and successfully completed the mission. What it doesn't mention is that he was unconscious from a shoulder wound for most of the extraction. It doesn't mention that his initial plan would have resulted in total team loss. And it doesn't mention me at all. The room was electric now. Whispers, anger, confusion, officers conferring. I've been offered a choice: accept honorable discharge and disappear quietly, or face court-martial for insubordination. What I did is either heroic or criminal depending on who's protecting their career. The Army will decide which. She looked directly at Lieutenant General Kessler, who sat in the front row with an unreadable expression. But I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to honor Master Sergeant Calloway. He spent 36 years teaching soldiers to be more than killers, to be thinkers, to understand that the best shot is sometimes the one you don't take. In his final year, when he knew he was dying, he trained me in secret. Not because I'm a woman, not to prove some political point, but because he saw potential being wasted by prejudice disguised as policy. Her voice cracked slightly. He's on this wall because he refused to let the system destroy what it didn't understand. He fought for students who deserved better. And in his last letter to Staff Sergeant Mitchell, he asked that we not let the Army bury me to protect someone's ego. She stepped back from the podium. I'm not asking for recognition. I'm asking for the chance to serve the way Boone did, to teach what he taught me, to prepare soldiers so they survive when missions go wrong. Let me earn my place through results, not politics. Or court-martial me and prove that this organization values reputation over excellence. Your choice, sirs. She saluted the wall, held it, then walked off the stage in perfect silence. The room exploded, shouting, arguments. Matthews intercepted her at the door, face purple with rage. You just committed career suicide. Maybe, Kenna said calmly, but I told the truth. That's what Boone would have done. You self-righteous, stand-down deputy director. The voice cut through chaos like a blade. Lieutenant General Raymond Kessler stood, 3 stars gleaming, commander of Army Special Operations, a man who'd been a young ranger when Boone Calloway was already a legend. He walked through the crowd, stopping in front of Kenna. Corporal Thorne, outside, now. They walked across Fort Bragg in silence. Kessler's aide tried to follow. The general waved him off. Whatever this was, it was private. Finally, Kessler stopped at a bench overlooking the training ranges, sat, gestured for Kenna to join him. Boone Calloway saved my life in Korea, he said quietly. 19 years old, green as grass. I froze under fire. He dragged me to cover, slapped me conscious, told me fear was fine, but quitting wasn't. I've carried that lesson 30 years. He looked at her. 3 weeks before he died, Boone called me, said he was training someone exceptional, someone who'd change things if given the chance. Asked me to watch out for you if politics got messy. I promised I would. His jaw tightened. Then I got busy. Let it slide. Forgot that promises to dying men are the kind you keep. Sir, you don't. Let me finish. His voice was steel now. What you did in Berlin was extraordinary. It also violated chain of command. If I ignore that, discipline collapses. If I punish it, I'm telling every soldier that following orders matters more than saving lives. He stood. So here's what's going to happen. You will not be court-martialed. You will not be discharged. You'll be promoted to sergeant and assigned to advanced sniper training as an instructor. 6-month trial. Prove you can teach as well as shoot, it becomes permanent. Fail, we revisit discharge. Clear. Kenna's breath caught. Sir, Yes, sir. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank Boone, and thank those Rangers who were willing to sacrifice their careers for you. That kind of loyalty is earned. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Boone left something for you. His lawyer has it. Go get it. Read it. Then decide if this is what you really want. Because the target on your back won't disappear. You'll work twice as hard for half the recognition. And if you fail, you set back every woman in special operations by a decade. Still want this? Yes, sir. Good. Report to Master Sergeant Sutton Monday morning 0600. Don't be late. He walked away, left Kenna standing alone trying to process what had just happened. She'd gambled everything on 5 minutes of truth, and somehow impossibly won. The lawyer's office was downtown, small practice handling military estates. The secretary handed Kenna an envelope, sealed, her name in Boone's handwriting. She waited until she was in her car to open it. Inside, a single page. Kenna, if you're reading this, I'm dead and you're at a crossroads. Someone's trying to screw you for doing the right thing. Don't let them. Here's what 36 years taught me. The system protects itself, always. It rewards conformity and punishes those who expose its failures. You can fight that, should fight it, but understand the call. You'll never be fully accepted, never fully trusted. You'll always be the exception, proving the rule, not the standard changing it. Is it worth it? You decide. But if you stay, if you teach, remember this. Legacy isn't about you. It's about the soldiers you prepare, the lives you save by giving them truth and skill. I trained 437 snipers. 82 are dead. I remember every name. The ones who lived haunt me less than the ones who died because I wonder if I taught them everything they needed. That burden is now yours. Every soldier you train either comes home or doesn't. You'll carry that forever. It doesn't get lighter. You just get stronger. Or you break. I didn't break. You won't either. Make them remember you, not because you're a woman, but because you're a warrior. Your father would be proud. I know I am. Boone. Kenna read it 3 times, folded it carefully, kept it in her pocket against her heart, and drove back to Fort Bragg to begin. Advanced sniper training operated from an unmarked building on Fort Bragg's edge. Kenna reported at 0600 Monday morning, 6 weeks after Berlin. She'd spent the time preparing, reading training manuals, studying teaching methodology, planning courses that balance fundamentals with tactical thinking. Master Sergeant Sutton, who ran the program, was waiting outside. Hard-eyed, weathered, a man who'd seen everything twice. Thorne, you're the one who made that speech. Yes, Sergeant. Don't care if you're a woman, a man, or a trained dolphin. You teach my students to shoot straight and survive, that's all that matters. Clear. Yes, Sergeant. Good. First class starts in 30, 12 students, Rangers, Green Berets, regular Army, advanced long-range precision. You'll teach them. He handed her a roster. 4 are betting you'll fail by week 2. 3 think you're only here because you're female. The rest are waiting to see. He almost smiled. Prove them wrong. Kenna looked at the roster. 12 names, 12 soldiers whose survival might depend on her teaching. 12 chances to honor Boone or confirm everyone's doubts. She walked into the classroom. The 12 students stood when she entered. She saw it immediately. Skepticism, judgment, the assumption that she couldn't possibly know what she was doing. She'd seen it before. Montana, basic, Ranger School, Berlin. Being underestimated was her oldest weapon. Seats, her voice was calm, authoritative, the voice of someone who had dueled a Soviet legend and negotiated peace. I'm Sergeant Thorne. Next 8 weeks, I'm your instructor. Some of you don't think I belong here. That's fine. Your opinion doesn't matter. Your performance does. She walked to the front. This isn't basic marksmanship. You can all shoot. I'm here to teach you to be snipers. There's a difference. Any fool can kill. A sniper understands when distance, patience, and when not to shoot. That last part's hardest. We'll focus on it. A hand raised. Young specialist, cocky smile. Sergeant, with respect, what's your operational experience? How many confirmed kills? Kenna met his eyes. 2 weeks ago in Berlin, I had Major Katrina Volkov's 73 confirmed kills in my crosshairs at 400 meters. I could have killed her. Instead, I negotiated. She helped me extract 7 Rangers, a defector, and his daughter. Everyone came home. She paused. That's what snipers do. Make hard choices, take shots that matter. Sometimes mercy matters more than death. The room went silent. The cocky specialist looked down. Other questions? None. Good. Grab your gear. Range. I want to see what you can do. Then we talk about what you need to learn. 8 weeks passed in intensity. Kenna taught everything Boone taught her. Wind reading, distance estimation, ballistics, but more judgment. When to engage, when to wait, when to refuse the shot. Your rifle makes you dangerous, she told them during week 3. Your brain makes you deadly. Use both. Every shot has consequences. You pull that trigger, you own what happens. Forever. By week 4, skepticism faded. She knew her subject, could teach it, could adapt to different learning styles. By week 6, 3 requested continued training under one. By week 8, all 12 passed with the highest scores in 5 years. Sutton reviewed results in his office. 94% average. Previous record was 87. You just embarrassed every instructor we've had. He looked up. How? Taught them to think sergeant, not just shoot. Master Sergeant Calloway's method. Sutton leaned back. General Kessler wants a recommendation. Permanent or discharge. What should I tell him? Your call, Sergeant. I'm asking your opinion. Kenna considered. I think I'm good at this. And soldiers deserve the best instruction available. If that's me, I want to stay. If not, I'll leave. But I won't stay just to make history, only if I'm actually helping. Sutton smiled. First genuine expression she'd seen. You're helping Thorne, better than me, honestly. Been doing this 15 years. He signed a form, stamped it. Permanent assignment approved. Welcome to instructor cadre. Now get out. Next class starts Monday. Yes, Sergeant. She left. Walked across Fort Bragg, past the museum where Boone's name was carved in stone, past ranges where he'd first tested her, past ghosts and memories, and kept walking. Because ghosts weren't her burden. The living were. Months became years. Kenna trained 143 snipers over 6 years, refined methods, developed new techniques, became known throughout special operations as the instructor who taught thinking, not just shooting. In '91, Iraq invaded Kuwait. America went to war. 47 of Kenna's students deployed to Desert Storm. They wrote letters from the sand, thanking her, saying lessons worked, training mattered. All 47 came home alive, not unscathed. War takes pieces from everyone, but breathing, whole enough to rebuild. Kenna kept every letter in a box under her bed, read them when doubt crept in, when she wondered if teaching instead of fighting was cowardice disguised as wisdom. The letters reminded her legacy isn't what you do, it's what you enable others to do. But one letter she never received. The absence haunted her more than any presence could. Corporal Jake Sullivan, whose femoral artery she'd helped save in that East Berlin tunnel, who'd been unconscious during extraction, who owed his life to the 90 seconds she'd bought with a covering fire. She'd written him twice. Care of Walter Reed, where Mitchell said he'd been sent for surgery. Both letters returned no longer at this facility. She'd checked casualty lists, nothing. She'd asked Mitchell, he'd gone quiet, changed the subject. Until 1995, a letter arrived from North Carolina. Return address Fayetteville, near Fort Bragg but not on base. Inside a single page in careful handwriting. Sergeant Thorne, you don't know me. I'm Sarah Sullivan, Jake's wife. He asked me to write this because he can't hold a pen long enough anymore. The surgery saved his life, but the damage was extensive. He lost his leg below the knee, medical discharge in '85. He doesn't talk about Berlin much, but when he does, he talks about you. About the sniper who bought him the time Doc needed to stop the bleeding. He wanted you to know he's okay. We have 2 daughters now. Emily is 4, Claire is 2. He teaches adaptive sports at the VA, helps other amputee vets learn to live again. He says he's paying forward what you gave him a second chance. Thank you for my husband. Thank you for my daughter's father. Thank you for teaching us all that mercy is a kind of strength. Sarah Sullivan. Kenna read it 5 times, then carefully folded it and added it to the box. Another life. Another reason the burden mattered. Years passed in rhythm. Train, deploy, mourn when necessary, celebrate when possible. She made Sergeant First Class in 1994, Master Sergeant in 1999, Command Sergeant Major in 2007, the first woman to achieve the rank in Special Operations Command. The promotion ceremony made headlines. Female sniper breaks barrier. Woman reaches top enlisted rank in elite unit. The press wanted interviews. She declined them all. My job is training soldiers, she told the public affairs officer, not being a symbol. Let my students' survival rate speak for itself. It did. Over 20 years, 217 snipers trained, 83 deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. 12 died in combat, not from inadequate training, but because war doesn't care how prepared you are. She knew their names, visited their families, carried their faces, just like Boone had carried his 82. In 2001, another letter arrived. No return address. Postmarked Berlin. Inside, a single page in careful English. Sergeant Thorne, many years have passed. The wall is gone now. Germany is one country. I am old woman retired tending garden. But I think of Berlin often, of the choice you made. Because of you, my niece Elena became doctor. She works in refugee clinic in Berlin, helping others find freedom. She does not know her aunt was sniper. I tell her only that her Aunt Katrina loved her enough to sacrifice everything. Thank you for that gift. Thank you for being warrior who understood mercy as strength, not weakness. If we meet again perhaps as friends over coffee, I would like that. Until then, train them well. Make them wise, not just deadly. World has enough killers, needs more teachers. K. Volkov. Kenna read it twice. Filed it carefully with her other treasured correspondence. Evidence that choices mattered, that sacrifices meant something, that the shot she didn't take in 1983 was still echoing 18 years later. By 2010, Kenna had trained 3 generations of snipers. Her methods were standard curriculum. Her students taught students who taught students. The legacy multiplied. The Army offered extensions. Stay until you're 60. We need your expertise. She declined. Boone knew when it was time, she told General Kessler now. A 4-star. I know too. I've given what I can. Time for the next generation to teach. Her retirement ceremony in 2011 was quiet by her request. No press, no politicians, just her final class of 12 students gathered at the range where Boone had first recruited her 28 years ago. I'm not going to tell you how to shoot, she said, standing before them one last time. You know that already. I'm going to tell you what Master Sergeant Calloway told me. Every shot has consequences. Every decision carries weight. You're not soldiers because you can kill. You're soldiers because you understand what killing costs. Remember that. Carry it. When you train the next generation, make sure they understand it too. She saluted them. They saluted back. And Sergeant Major Kenneth Thorne walked off the range for the last time. At the memorial wall, she placed something at the base of Boone's name. A custom round she'd machined herself. Brass-polished mirror bright, engraved with 2 words, mission complete. Kept my promise, she whispered. Trained them right, made them think. Some still died, 12 out of 217, and I'll carry them forever. But I gave every one of them the best chance I could, just like you gave me. The wind answered with silence, the only reply ghosts can give. Kenna left Fort Bragg that evening, 28 years compressed into memory. She'd arrived broken, seeking purpose, left whole having found it. Montana waited. The cabin still stood, maintained by a property management company, but slowly reclaiming its wilderness character. She'd return there now, full circle. The mountains that made her would receive her back. In the truck bed, 3 rifles, a lifetime of letters, and a box containing 2 items. Her father's Remington 700, and Boone's letter worn soft from reading. She'd prepared 217 soldiers. 12 were dead, 204 were alive. The math wasn't perfect, but it was better than it could have been. Better than it would have been without her. That was enough. 3 months into retirement, living alone in the Montana cabin, Kenna received a visitor. A young woman in Army fatigues. Corporal rank, early 20s. Nervous but determined. Ma'am, I'm Corporal Rachel Martinez. I just graduated sniper school, top of my class, but I'm being assigned to logistics support. They say I'm not ready for operational deployment. She swallowed. I was told you might understand, that maybe you could help. Kenna looked at this young soldier, saw herself 30 years ago, saw potential being wasted, saw the system repeating patterns because systems don't change without constant pressure. Corporal Martinez, sit down. I want to tell you about 2 people. My father, who taught me that every shot matters, and Master Sergeant Boone Calloway, who taught me that the best shot is sometimes the one you don't take. Then we'll talk about what you're going to do next. They talked for 3 hours. Kenna made calls, used connections built over 3 decades. Within a month, Rachel Martinez was reassigned to an operational unit. Within a year, she deployed to Afghanistan. Within 2 years, she was back at Fort Bragg asking Kenna to mentor her transition to instructor. The cycle continued, because that's how legacies work. Not monuments or medals, not glory or recognition. Knowledge passed hand to hand, generation to generation, warrior to warrior. On a gray November morning in 2015, Kenna stood at her father's grave in the Montana hills, 36 years since his death. She was 58 now, the same age Boone had been when he recruited her. Did I do right, Dad? She asked the stone. I became what you taught me to be. Not by killing the most, but by teaching others to survive. 217 students. 205 still breathing. Is that enough? The wind rustled through pine trees, carried the smell of snow coming. She took that as yes. That afternoon, she returned to the cabin and did something she'd been avoiding. Opened the box under her bed, read through every letter, every thank you from students, every update from families. every proof that her service had mattered. At the bottom, wrapped in cloth, she found something she'd forgotten was there. A photograph. Boone had given it to her during training. Faded. Black and white. Taken in Korea, 1951. A young Boone Calloway, barely 27, standing with a rifle. Behind him, three even younger soldiers. Fresh-faced, scared. Alive because he'd trained them. On the back, in Boone's handwriting, "My first students. All three made it home. That's when I knew teaching was my real mission." BC. Kenna stared at that photo for a long time. Then she pulled out a recent picture, her final class of 12 taken on graduation day. All of them standing, proud rifles, gleaming futures, uncertain but prepared. She placed both photos side by side on her father's old workbench. 3 students in 1951, 12 students in 2011, 217 students total over her career, thousands trained by her students, tens of thousands influenced by methods she'd developed. The legacy wasn't hers, it was Boone's and her father's, and every teacher who'd ever believed one student was worth fighting for. She was just the latest link in a chain stretching back through wars and decades, and the quiet spaces where warriors prepared other warriors for what was coming. Kenna Thorne had been the marksman's daughter. She'd become the sergeant's teacher. And now, sitting in a Montana cabin surrounded by mountains that had forged her, she understood what Boone had meant in his letter. The burden didn't get lighter. You just got stronger. Or you broke. She hadn't broken. 205 lives testified to that. Outside, snow began to fall. Inside, Kenna cleaned her father's Remington 700 one more time, the ritual, soothing, familiar, eternal. And somewhere in Berlin, an old woman named Katrina Volkov tended roses and thought about an American girl who'd chosen mercy over mission. 32 years ago. Somewhere in North Carolina, Jake Sullivan watched his daughters play and thanked God daily for borrowed time. Somewhere in Afghanistan, Rachel Martinez lined up a shot, remembered Kenna's teaching, and made the hard choice to wait instead of fire-saving 3 civilians from becoming collateral damage. The shot that mattered most wasn't the one that killed, it was the one that taught, and that shot echoed forever.